Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today, Leisa Rosen, head coach of the Fresno State Volleyball team. Welcome to Bump Set Chat, a podcast for volleyball professionals that come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today, I'm super excited. I have Leisa Rosen from the Fresno State Bulldogs. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. So the way we get started with the pod is we do 3 random questions. So are you ready?
Sure.
All right. Favorite home-cooked meal?
My mom makes amazing lasagna and chili. So I don't know if I can determine between the two.
All right. Last TV show or movie you watched?
Ted Lasso.
That's such a great series.
For sure.
All right. And then when you're flying, are you an aisle or window person?
Kind of depends. If it's a long flight, my parents live in Alaska, so long flight, window, shorter flight, aisle.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to the pod. And first of all, congratulations on your first season. Mountain West champs. That's not a bad way to start.
Yeah, it was very rewarding. Obviously, it was great to win, but I thought that it was just a really rewarding 12 months, because it all starts in January. It doesn't necessarily start in August, but we finished off the year great. And obviously winning the tournament was a definite highlight. So yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Excellent. All right. So a second ago, you mentioned you're from Alaska. How did you end up from Alaska to, first of all, playing at Ohio State?
Well, I was on a very, very good club team. When I was in high school, kind of the 2 main sports in Alaska were for women, or for girls, it was volleyball, and then for boys, it was hockey.
Yeah.
So, played on a very good, very competitive club team, did a lot of, traveling, traveled, to a lot of very competitive tournaments and, the club scene, and then got recruited. Steve Pickering was the assistant at Ohio State at that point in time, and he's since retired from coaching, but he was an amazing recruiter. I took a visit to Ohio State and I absolutely loved it.
Oh, wow. And now, when did you first discover volleyball? Was it big in middle school or not really until high school?
No, I actually didn't start playing until I was in high school. I swam, growing up. I swam, and that pretty competitively, but I figured out, once I started playing volleyball, that my future was more productive or better in volleyball. Plus I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, swam and then started playing volleyball in high school.
And what was the hook volleyball had on you?
I liked how fast paced it was. I liked how competitive it was. I'm a very competitive person. And I think everybody says that, but I'm a very competitive person. But I really like the barrier between me and my opponent.
Yeah.
I don't think that, like I said, I grew up swimming. And so that was obviously very non-contact. And so everybody tried to get me to play basketball. And I don't think that I would have enjoyed or handled the contact as well as maybe I should have.
Yeah.
And so volleyball was a great segue into a little bit more action versus just a pool.
Yeah. Excellent. And now, from you mentioned you played club and whatnot. Club seems to be very important to that volleyball development if you want to succeed and make it further to that next level of possibly playing in college.
Absolutely. And I think that, obviously I was in high school just a bit ago. But the development of club volleyball has been huge for the sport. I think that when we go out recruiting, we go to club tournaments, these, the qualifiers and all of that, we can see thousands of teams, which means we're seeing thousands of players at one time. And so from an efficiency standpoint, that works out really well. But then also just from a competitive standpoint, the club scene has really driven the talent level and the competitiveness to, unheard of heights, or, everybody's playing at a very high level now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And plus, recruiting at club tournaments you're seeing everybody sort of at that same level versus high school. It's such a wide gap.
Yeah, I think that, the good thing club is, you have to go and try out. And so everybody's skill level, like you said, everybody's skill level is pretty similar versus high school. Yes, you have tryouts, but you still have to pick from, the kids that are in your region or
Yeah.
in your, school district. So club volleyball has definitely driven the talent level to new heights
Yeah.
as far as just the whole entire pool of athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, so after high school, you landed at Ohio State. What made you pick Ohio State? What was that recruiting process like?
I really I had a great visit. I got a really good connection with the head coach, which was Jim Stone at the time. He was the right type of coach for me. I needed someone that was going to be just very disciplined, very structured, and not because I needed that, but
Yeah.
I wanted that. Very structured. I thought that his vision of what he wanted Ohio State, kind of where he wanted them to go, was very much in line with me as a 18-year or 17-year olds. Again, I loved the competitive aspect that he wanted or that he promoted in the gym. And so that was the best fit for me. And then just being on campus, like it was a fabulous campus. It was very, very eye opening, totally
Yeah.
different experience for someone that's from, Wasilla, Alaska. So that was kind of eye opening, but also very exciting at the same
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, I've been out to Alaska once, and even from Ohio State to Alaska, it's a whole nother world. As a 17-year-old, what was that adjustment like?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I knew that, and I was born and raised in Colorado, and so my parents moved up there when I was in middle school, and they still live up there now. I knew all along when I started going through the recruiting process, and well, when I started playing volleyball and getting better, and kind of figuring out that I was going to have the opportunity to play in college and then play at a pretty high Division I program in college. My mom knew, I had told her all along that I wasn't going to stay in Alaska, that I was going to go away from home. And so it didn't really matter, especially being in Alaska. Like, it doesn't matter if it's, wherever you go, it's a plane ride.
Yeah.
So, just make the decision on going wherever you want to and wherever it feels right versus trying to stay close to home or anything like that. So she knew that I was going to go away when I went to college. So it was potentially a little bit farther than what we both thought, but
Yeah.
it was the best decision I ever made.
Oh, awesome. And now, out of that whole Ohio State experience, what are some of the highlights that stick out for you?
Well, I think, I had the opportunity. I was named Freshman of the Year. I was named Player of the Year. I was an All-American there. But probably the biggest kind of bragging or thing that I am super proud of is my freshman year. We finished, and this was when there was only 10 in the Big Ten. My freshman year, we finished ninth in the Big Ten, and then my sophomore year, we won the Big Ten. So just kind of that progression. And then also, making Ohio State a relevant program at that point in time. So then my sophomore year, we won the Big Ten, and that was obviously a huge highlight. My junior year, we were second, which was a huge bummer. And then my senior year, we won the Big Ten as well. My senior year was pretty magical. This was when it was regular scoring, not rally scoring. We
Yeah.
only dropped within the Big Ten conference. We only dropped 3 sets
Oh,
that
wow.
entire our entire Big Ten season. And so we were kind of on a mission. We were a very veteran group that had freshmen that kind of plugged in and were really good players, but we were very much on a mission to not just win, but to make a statement. And I think that we did that. And then, we went to the Final Four
Wow.
that year. That was, I couldn't have asked for a better finish
Yeah.
to my playing career than that. So, I was the captain of the team, and I was named Player of the Year for the Big Ten that year. So, some really cool individual highlights, but more importantly, kind of establishing Ohio State as a powerhouse, and then, taking them to the first Final Four that they've ever been to. That was pretty cool.
That's amazing. And now, if you could look back on your college career and, what is something you would tell, sort of a new freshmen coming into college next year as to, be prepared for this, or something you wish you knew then that you knew now?
Well, I think especially with me being in this career, I chose it as a career and a lifestyle. I think the biggest message to get across is everybody's experience is going to be different. Your experience, my experience was different than my teammates' experience. But your experience is your very own, and there's a lot of people that their freshman year is rough. I was fortunate enough to be able to come in and play right away, and I was an impact player. But there were times in there where I was like super homesick or super overwhelmed. And that's normal. Like
Yeah.
that's totally normal. You're not failing, you're not doing anything wrong. You can succeed through hard times, and I think that so many people now, it's, as soon as things get hard, then they kind of panic,
Yeah.
and they don't have the confidence in themselves or the people around them that they can go through that experience. And I think that, freshman year, and my youngest son just went through his freshman year last year, and there were numerous times where he's a baseball player, and I would talk to him about, he's like, I suck, I can't do this,
Yeah.
the demands are so high. And my message to him was just get through your freshman year. Freshman year is hard. And you don't know what you don't know. And that's a lot of what freshman year is all about. And
Yeah.
so my message to him and to any of our freshmen is just, keep striving to get through that freshman year. And then make a decision after that, if it's the right place, or if it isn't the right place, or if you love it or you hate it, or whatever. But give yourself time to fail and feel what that and see what that feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. And now, the other thing with you were talking a little bit about, that freshman year experiences. Often, the kids coming in and being freshmen, they're coming from teams where they're playing their starters, and now they may not have that role, and that's got to be an adjustment, maybe a little, hurt the ego a little bit too, and that takes something to get used to.
Yeah, and I think that that's the biggest thing where coaches need to develop realistic expectations and realistic relationships with their players, and so they can help guide them through that. Because you're right, most of the people that go to college, they're either the best player on their high school team or they're the best player on their club team. And so, being able to handle kind of that adversity, or just a step back in trying to figure out what they're doing and why they're doing it, that's okay. It's
Yeah.
all totally normal. But I think that, and I think that that's where being able to communicate with not only your coaches, but then also your teammates
Yeah.
about, hey, what's going on here? Because everybody that is an upperclassman has gone through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, so after college, you got to play professional volleyball as well.
I was on one of I think this may have been the second, um, kind of the second iteration of professional volleyball. And I did it for a year. And it was great. So I had the option or the choice to go overseas
Yeah.
or to play in the United States. And I didn't have a lot of interest in going overseas to play. So I did have the opportunity to play professional for a season.
Yeah. What bit you about the coaching bug?
Well, I think the biggest thing is in my senior year at Ohio State, I really, I was put into a role of being a leader and, kind of trying to help mentor the younger players that were coming in. We had 3 freshmen and 3 seniors that started that year. So just being able to kind of give them advice and help them with stuff at the same time being a good teammate and not being overbearing. I love being in the gym. I have developed a love for kind of empowering and developing strong females.
Yeah.
And I I played for Jim Stone, and obviously he was a very, very influential coach in my life. But having a female be a head coach, I think that that's, I'm very excited, and I understand that that role is a big deal. Like it's a privilege, and there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, so what has been your sort of coaching path from then to now here at Fresno State?
Well, I coached some club. My husband and I actually coached together for about 25 years, probably about 30
Oh,
years.
wow.
We started coaching a club team together to see if we could do that. Because it's, you don't go into that lightly. It's your
Right.
profession, it's his profession. You have to be there has to be boundaries with that. So we worked in a club team together, and it was, the first couple months it was pretty rocky as far as just figuring out, what are our responsibilities,
Yeah.
and what are the bounds, what are the lines that we have to stay in, or what are, responsibilities. After that, we both went to Northern Michigan, which is a Division II school up in the UP
Hmm.
of Michigan, and it was great. The first year we were there, we won a national championship.
Wow.
So that was a really nice way for me to start my career. I
Yeah.
probably should have just retired at that point in time. But we were there for 4 years. Then we went to Boise State for a year. And then we went to Michigan, and we were at Michigan for 23 years. He was the head coach. I was the associate head coach. And then he was ready to get out, and I wasn't. And so then that's what brought me. And I think for the last probably maybe 5 years at Michigan, we worked really well together, but I was ready to kind of move into more of a head coaching role.
Yeah.
And then that's what brought me to Fresno State.
Ah. And then, what made you choose Fresno State? What were the things that you saw that, the people you met that said, yeah, this is where I need to be?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. And I was really like, before looking at this job, I was like, oh, I don't really know anything about it. It's a long way from where we're at. But when I got on campus, I had the opportunity to meet Carrie Call, who is the SWA here at Fresno State, and she's my sport administrator. She's super involved in volleyball. She's done a lot of the like she was on the NCAA committee and stuff like that. So she has a very strong vision of what she wants volleyball to be. And I had the opportunity to meet Terry. Obviously, he's the athletic director here. Both of them they're very aligned in the fact that they want volleyball to be great, and they're supporting it in a way that I think that we can be great here. The facilities are very, very good. I think that the support for our student athletes is great. Just just the feel of the campus and the feel of the administration is they want volleyball to be successful,
Yeah.
and that aligned with me. And then they're willing to support it in a way that within this conference, I think that we can, obviously we had success this first year, but I think it can be a sustained success, not just a kind of a flash in the pan or a one-time thing. I think it can be a sustained thing.
Yeah. Excellent. And then, over the years of coaching, what have been some of the more challenging things to deal with? Because not everybody can survive coaching for, even a few years. And here you are, over 20 years coaching.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, and that it's actually funny that you use the word survive. That was a big thing that we talked about with the team is I don't want these guys, and I don't want myself to just survive. I think that that's kind of looking at stuff as a negative. I want us to be able to thrive. And so, we talked about that a lot during preseason is if you're going to do this, if we're going to be here in double days, if we're going to, let's not just get by. Let's not just count the clock until it's done. Let's not just survive. Let's really thrive in this. So let's put everything into it. And that doesn't mean that you're always going to feel great or that you have 100%, you're feeling perfect. But let's make sure that we're thriving in whatever we're doing. Let's make sure we're thriving. And I think that's the same thing with my career is that, I have the opportunity to work with 18 to 22-year-olds super successful female student athletes, and that's an opportunity for me to be able to help grow them.
Yeah.
And I think that, I want to try and develop very strong, very confident females to go off into whatever it is that they choose to do, whether it's play professional, whether it's to never play again, whether it's to be a mom, whether it's to be a working, I mean,
Yeah.
whatever role they go into next. I want them to be able to take the stuff that we did here with them and apply it to their next, whatever their next adventure is.
Yeah.
And so that's a big responsibility, and it's one that I take very seriously. And so if I am projecting that I'm just trying to survive or I'm just trying to get by, then I think that that's the same thing that I'm going to project to them. And so I really try and do a good job of, this is an opportunity. Like, I get to do this job every single day. I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sad when you get to the point where you have to do something. So just kind of a perspective that I want to try and pass on to the athletes that I work with.
Yeah, that's a great approach too. And like you said, you have these, you have these ladies for 4 years to, make them the best that they can be.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's such a defined amount of time. When we look at it at 4 years, 4 years seems like an eternity, but when you get in the middle of it, 4 years goes by really fast. And this is really if we do a good job and they do a good job, then this is the place that they're going to graduate from and they're going to be proud of for the rest of their lives. My experience at Ohio State was amazing. And I've had the opportunity to work at different places, and I've been able to represent different places, but my first love is always going to be Ohio State, because that's where that's where I went to school. And I love that about college athletics.
Yeah. And I had a senior on recently, and she talked about, she was going to miss the most was the locker room. Those 4 years of being in the locker room with those friends that their family. You go through ups and downs, and you'll never experience that sort of moment any further in your life, because it's not a job to them at that point.
Yeah, and if you do a good job, if we do a good job, then that's exactly the mentality that we want our student athletes to leave with. The wins and losses are cool. They're a big deal, but they're not the most important thing. And that doesn't mean that we don't value winning. But it just means that we're giving them a whole experience that they can walk away with and be very, very proud about and be able to tell their kids about.
Yes. Coming from Michigan, what are some of the coaching lessons or, experiences you had that, really helped you and you're looking to bring them to Fresno State?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that we're treating each individual as an authentic, genuine person, being able to communicate with them at their level, but at the same time being very, very consistent with the message that we're sending. When I opened up the program here, the first team meeting that we had, the first thing that I talked about was trust. That we were going to have to build trust. They were going to have to build trust in me. I was going to have to build trust in them. They needed to trust. There's 3 parts of trust, and that's, trusting your coaches, trusting your teammates. But I think the most important part is trusting yourself. And this is such an influential kind of growing time for them. And for them to be able to trust themselves, that's such a hard thing to do, especially now with, when I was playing, we didn't have social media. And so we didn't have to worry about, good or bad. Social media has changed the world. And I'm not going to get on a soapbox and say it's bad. I'm not going to say that it's the best thing in the world. It is what it is. And so we have to be able to develop student athletes, our student athletes, to be able to trust that what they're doing is perfect. It's great. Whether we're giving them, feedback to change, whether we're giving them feedback to keep doing what they're doing, they have to be able to trust themselves that what that they're doing is right.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we look at in recruiting. We look at recruiting as far as character and stuff like that a lot. But I think that trust is the biggest thing that that I want to continue to build upon, because trust is super hard to develop, but it's also very, very easy to destroy.
Yeah.
And so you want to be very careful with that. But I think if you treat each of the student athletes as individuals and as unique individuals, and be consistent with your message, then I think you're going to have success.
Yeah. And, to sort of add on to that trust aspect, you were coming in new to these girls that, the ones that weren't freshmen that had a relationship with, previous coach and whatnot. So that, that made things a little bit harder too, or more of a challenge to sort of get everybody on the same page. And here we go.
Yeah, and I was super impressed with this group. They were very willing and very ready to kind of start training the way we wanted them to train. They were willing and very ready to just kind of embody the type of student athlete and the type of program that I think can be successful. And obviously, as we fast forward through the year and get to December, we were able to do that. And I think that that's a testament to the girls and how hard they worked. It's a testament to myself and the rest of my staff on just kind of figuring out what's the best kind of style for us to play, and how do we kind of enhance our strengths and then also, diminish our weaknesses.
Yeah. How was that first practice? Here you are, you're the head coach. It's your first practice. This is your team. What was that experience?
It was great. I think that, I'm very comfortable in the gym. I think that that's where, obviously, I'm a coach. And so if I'm not comfortable in the gym, I'm probably not in the right profession.
Yeah.
But just being in the gym and being able to work with the girls on some technique stuff, but then also really enhancing competition, that's my sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, like, we're not the type of staff that our players have to look the same, and we're not a cookie cutter, like everybody has to do everything exactly the same. I think it's taking that individual student athlete and again, making sure that they're doing stuff that is the best for them.
Yeah.
And so being in practice and structuring practices, that's kind of my happy place. And so that was easy. It was all the other media stuff, and that was where I was more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I also know that that's an area where I have to grow in and get better. But being in the gym, that's easy.
Excellent. And now, one thing I've, since, jumping back into volleyball and, understanding the, when the women play versus when the men play, it seems like it's a really tough thing for the women's program to start playing, because basically you're starting when college is starting. That's, that first season for the freshmen, you basically show up to college, you have a few weeks beforehand, and you're running and starting school and as a Division I athlete.
Yeah, I think that's the one kind of challenge that fall sports have. I absolutely love being a fall sport, because I think in the fall, especially on a college campus, everything's exciting, everything's new, everything's starting up. The fall is an unbelievable season, just as far as the weather's concerned. And so, there's just a lot of excitement in the air. I think that, the one negative is that we start up right away. We have about 2.5 weeks of practice, and then we have our first competition. So, making sure, and that was an area that we talked a lot about in April when we finished up practice in the spring, was that the girls were going to have to do a great job of kind of self-monitoring, self-motivating themselves to come back on campus and really work out and lift and get in and do open gym opportunities in the summer.
Yeah.
And I was really, really impressed with their mentality and the culture that was set with that. And I think now that they did that and we had our success, now I think it's going to be a kind of a mainstay.
Yeah.
I think there's always risks where you ask the girls to, you ask your student athlete to kind of sell out for something. and then you don't have success, then they have the opportunity of kind of turning off
Yeah.
or thinking it's not worth it, or wanting to do something different. Versus we had tremendous success at the end of the year. And so that kind of buy-in now, it's much easier.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that we had the success we did for lots of reasons, but probably more than anything, it just kind of solidifies the culture of, you have to be self-motivated. You have to be kind of self-sufficient and take care of your body. I mean, your body that's the tool that
Yeah.
you get to, that you use for the next 4 years. So
Yeah.
I was really happy that we had the success, because we did. They put a lot in the summer, with our strength coach and on their own in open gyms.
Yeah. And what a great way to send the seniors off. I'm sure the seniors were worried coming into that final year, and then to end it, as champs was fantastic.
100%. We had 2 fifth-year seniors that decided to come back, for the COVID year, and that's a big responsibility. They come back, and they're coming back with the hopes of having a very successful year. And then we had one true senior, so we only had 3 seniors. But they, I think if you talk to them, they had a very, very successful and a very fun, because I think that competition is fun if
Yeah.
you do it the right way. They had a very fun kind of end of their career.
Nice. And now, sort of on the other side of that, from a recruiting process, it's crucial for college sports. What kind of qualities or skills are you looking for in potential recruits that will be a good fit for Fresno State?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you always, for hitters, we always need vertical. We need good, players that can touch at a certain point. That's, with our sport, that's just a kind of a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So we're looking for very physical student athletes. I think that we can take a little bit more risk here with having players that we can kind of develop
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more. We have a little bit more time to develop them. And so that's, kind of project or raw type kids that are just physical, that maybe haven't played the game for that long. I think that we can have a lot of success with that. We have a player on our team right now that, ever since we walked in the gym, prior to us being here, she wasn't an offensive threat at all. She was a middle, but she was just a blocking middle.
Yeah.
And we came in and we put the expectation on her that, look, we need offense out of you. Yes, your blocking is great, but we need offense out of you. And gradually she started taking on more responsibility. And at the end of the season this past year, like, we were setting her at crucial times, and I think that's a huge testament to the coaches having faith in her, but more than anything, her developing. And so, she was a little bit more of a project type kid
Mm-hmm.
for us. But I think that, just being a very good athlete and a great volleyball player, those two things, we will be very successful with players like that.
Yeah. And then, for the players coming in, what are you seeing any skills or habits that you'd like to see, high school coaches or club coaches focus on a little bit more, or like any bad habits from, kids coming in? It's like, what, I wish they'd talk more, focus more on this skill versus that skill.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I think that kids are starting to get into lifting programs too early.
Yeah.
I don't think that, I just don't think that you have to be a big time in the weight room type person. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't take care of your body as far as like core and, just being in good shape. But I don't think that, our strength coach, I think most strength coaches on college campuses, like that's what they do for a living. And so the less time they can spend on breaking bad habits of what kids have learned, either on their own or maybe from professionals that aren't quite as qualified or trained as a head strength coach at a university. I think that's one thing is I don't think that lifting is crucial to especially for a female student athlete when they're 14, 15,
Yeah.
16, 17 years old. Now, when they get here, that becomes a heavy emphasis for them, to gain strength, to, especially from a, injury prevention standpoint, but then also, a performance enhancement. Lifting is a huge deal at the college level. So they need to come in and be in good shape, but I don't think that they need to come in and be, an expert in the weight room, because, at times you're spending time breaking bad habits, or you're working with overuse injuries,
Yeah.
back injuries, or, just overuse. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think the more college, or the more club coaches and high school coaches can spend on just ball control. I don't love the fact that a lot of times when we'll get a middle in the gym, they've never served, or they've never passed, or they've never played defense.
Yeah.
I just think that, and that's across the board, everything is so specialized right now. And I understand it from the club perspective is, they're definitely a participation based industry, because let's
Yep.
be honest, it's a money making industry.
Yeah.
And so the more people they can get playing, then everybody's going to be happier.
Yeah.
But that also, that then promotes a ton of specialization. I would
Yes.
love for the players that we have coming in the gym, I would love for our setters to be able to hit. I would love for, and it doesn't mean that they're going to hit
Right.
in a game. They're still going to be a setter, but for them to be able to hit an overpass, or for them to be able to play doubles or triples or anything like that. Same thing with middles, to be able to play a little bit of defense.
Yeah.
And so I think that I would love to see less specialization, but I don't know if that's possible because of kind of the financial constraints
Yeah.
that are placed on clubs. I mean, clubs have to, they have to have participation.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sort of that same way. Like, old school me is like, just, you got to be able to play all. It's not like I almost look at it as baseball. You have every pitcher for a certain inning, and, you want a more well-rounded player to be able to handle any situation.
Yeah. And so we work on that. We
Yep.
work on that in our gym all the time. We play a lot of doubles. We'll play a lot of triples, and our middles fail a lot. But they also get better at
Hmm.
it. Everybody's expected to be able to do everything. It doesn't mean that they're going to be, that doesn't mean that their specialty goes away, but they need to be able to do everything.
Yeah. So now, when the season starts, what does a travel week look like? Do you guys build in some, video review and everything like that?
Yeah, so our conference is, once we get into conference play, our conference plays typically on Thursday, Saturday, which is a really good, it makes for a little bit of a long road trip, but I think it's also really nice because you get that day in between. And so if you're having to travel, you have that time to be able to get from place to place.
Hmm.
So we'll come in if we're practicing on a Monday. Our week typically starts on Monday. I love giving the girls Sunday off. I think that having a true off day is essential. I think a lot of times as coaches, we think more is better, and sometimes less is better, especially when you get to the end of the season. So I really like giving Sundays off because it's a true off day. You
Yeah.
don't have school, you don't have anything. And if you need to take care of schoolwork, then you can. So we'll start on Mondays. We'll practice on a Monday, practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, travel on that Wednesday. We actually started practicing in the mornings here, and I've never done that anywhere else. And I'm
Yeah.
not a huge morning person, so I didn't know how that would be. And I absolutely love it.
Okay.
We don't practice, I mean, we go 8 to 11, which isn't terribly early, but it's a great way to wake up and do something that you absolutely love.
Yeah.
Most everybody that's in athletics likes being active, likes being physical. So you get up and you do that first thing in the morning. And then it kind of starts the rest of your day off.
Yeah.
So we'll go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then we'll travel on Wednesday, play on Thursday, typically travel on Friday, and then play on Saturday. And then our conference plays Saturday afternoons.
Okay.
So that on Saturday, Saturday late afternoon or evening, we're typically home.
Nice.
And I think that that's really, I think from the student athlete experience perspective, I think that that's really important.
Yeah.
That we try and give them. Again, we don't use that Sunday as a travel day. We're actually home on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of we do a lot of video scout stuff. We put it a little bit more on the girls instead of sitting down and having, a meeting with them and telling them what the scouting report is. We actually do the scouting report through the week, and then we come up with and we collaborate with them on what to do from a scouting report standpoint. So that puts a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more onus on them, but they're the ones that are playing too.
Yeah.
We could give them a scouting report, but whether they follow it or whether they're capable of it or whether they buy into it, that's another, that's, you don't know. And so by us having them participate in it on a daily basis and then collaborating with them at the end of the week when we come up with our final one, I think that gets a lot more buy-in.
Yeah.
At least that's been my experience.
All right. For those kids that maybe end up watching this podcast, if they're looking at schools, what about Fresno State's going to be, a place for them to spend 4 years playing volleyball and growing?
Well, I think if they're out of state, it's a great opportunity to come experience something totally different. Whether you're on the West Coast, whether you're in the Midwest, whether you're in the Northwest, I mean, wherever.
Yeah.
It's just a totally different experience, and so seeing something different for 4 years. And again, we said that 4 years isn't that long. And maybe they figure out that they love it, and they want to stay here, or they don't love it, but they're living it, and then they go back to whatever it is that they want.
Yeah.
So I think just from experience something different. I think that the culture and the true kind of spirit of supporting the athletics here at Fresno is amazing. I think that our football team is a solid football team. They were ranked in the national top 25 a couple times this past year. So from a school spirit standpoint, again, the fall, everything's going in the fall. I think it's amazing. From a program specific standpoint, I think that, we showed that we can be a true contender in this conference this past year. And, my goals haven't changed. I want to be at least in the top 3 every year in this conference. And I want to be contending for a conference title. I want to win the regular season. And I think that's what our student athletes here, that's the goal for them too. It's not just my goal.
Yeah.
It's a goal that we share kind of collectively. And then obviously, becoming more and more nationally recognized, that's the next step.
Mm-hmm.
We made the NCAA tournament. It was the first time in over 20 years that Fresno's been to the tournament. And so when we came back from that, we got home and we met, and I was really very honest with the girls that I thought that, from the time that we left for the NCAA, we went up to Stanford. So when we left for Palo Alto and came back, we grew as a program. We got better because we experienced the NCAA tournament. And so now my expectation isn't just to experience it. It's not just to survive, but it's to thrive in the tournament. Yep. So those are some kind of big goals for us as we move forward.
Yeah. And now during this past season, when it started, were there any games highlighted on the calendars that were like, okay, we're getting ready for this one, or other nights during the year, like senior night is always a big thing. What were some of the sort of highlights for this past year?
I think one big highlight was our first match. We opened up at Butler. We played UC San Diego, and we didn't do well. We did not. We got beaten 4, but we didn't play well. But I think it was a kind of a highlight moment for us because it was kind of like, okay, where are we at? We'd been in the gym practicing. We knew some stuff that we were potentially not great at. And so taking over a program and being the head coach here for the first year, that first match was like, okay, let's see what we can do. Yeah. So that was a big highlight match. It was fine. We didn't win, but I thought it was a great experience. I think that, going into conference, opening up the conference because in 22, they did not have a good conference record. They only won one match in the conference. And so we split on that weekend. We played Air Force the first match, and then we played New Mexico the second night, and we split. We came out against Air Force and we played great, but we couldn't sustain it for long enough. But then New Mexico, we got that, we came out great and we were able to sustain and we were able to get the win off of that. So I think that first weekend was a huge weekend for us because it was like, okay, this is the path we're on. This is the competition in front of us. Let's go.
Yeah.
Obviously the conference tournament, that was a pretty, getting into the conference tournament and then obviously succeeding and having success within that and advancing each night. Those were some pretty big nights as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And start of the season, like you said, last year you guys didn't do well in conference. This year, the polls had you down low, and look where you finished. Like it was just, during the year, were there any certain moments or certain games where it clicked and you felt like, okay, we're moving now?
Yeah, I think that, we came up with a slogan, and I have to give mad props to our media relations person, Holly. She did a great job of kind of running with it. But we came up with the slogan of "Why not us?" And that was something that we used. She did a hashtag with it, and we used that. But I liked that because it really focused on us. It didn't focus on the other team. It focused on how are we going to attack the other team, and how are we going to control the things that we can control. We talk about it a lot in coaching is control what you can control. And so the slogan, "Why not us," was a big part of that. And so, I think that about halfway through the season, second half of the conference, we went on I think it was either a 4 or 5, maybe 6 game winning streak. And it was, you could just kind of feel the momentum and the confidence. The biggest thing is the confidence of the girls started to show, and they started to, we started to win some really highly competitive matches. I think we were excellent in fifth sets this past year. We had and actually probably one of the highlight matches was we had a huge win against Colorado State at Colorado State.
Oh, wow.
We only played them one time this year. And I don't think that I don't think Fresno State's won there since they've been in the conference. And so to be able to go into there, and it was a 5-set match, and it was a great match. And to come out of there with a win, I think that kind of solidified, okay, we could be pretty good to finish off this year.
Yeah.
And obviously we met up with them again in the conference championship, and it was a 5-set match, and it was very, very highly contested. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing is the girls started gaining confidence and, getting better, but more than anything, they started believing in themselves.
Yeah. Nice. And now, we many times about this being a 4-year window, and leadership is so important. How do you guys identify leaders? Like you got to, are you looking for them at, for freshmen or sophomore years to identify that leader? And, is that leadership something that people just have or individuals have naturally, or is it something, some can learn over their lives?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I do think that there's natural leaders, like there's just kids that are just that people want to follow, and so I think that certainly happens. But I also think that you can develop leadership qualities, and I think that a lot of the things that we looked at from a leadership standpoint was how hard are you working, how well do you communicate with your teammates and with your coaching staff, how do you hold yourself accountable? Are you holding yourself? Are you holding your teammates? More than anything, though, are you holding yourself accountable? So we do a lot of stuff with a lady on staff within our athletic department that runs a leadership seminar.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of stuff with her. I think that it was nice to be able to take the leadership aspect out of my hands and put it into someone else's.
Yeah.
Because she talked about leadership in a very genuine, very authentic way, but it was outside of volleyball. And
Yeah.
so I think that that was really important. We'll continue working with her. She's fabulous within our program. But we asked the girls a lot too. You know, we did a kind of a survey on what are they looking for in leadership, and it's not anonymous.
Okay.
They have to put their name on it. You know, we surveyed them kind of at the end of the spring season, and they had to put their name on it because I think that we want to know who people are looking at as far as those leaders that they're going to follow. And so I think we came up with a very we have a leadership council that has 4 people in it, and then we had 2 captains that were kind of that came out of that as well, that were far and away kind of the most respected, the most accepted as far as leaders are concerned.
Yeah. Wow.
But we
Excellent.
don't pick them. The coaches don't pick them. The team doesn't pick them either. It's a very kind of scientific way that we go about kind of figuring out who the leaders are.
Yeah. Oh, neat. And now, for those freshmen that are coming from high school to college, do you find they adjust quickly to the college game, or, because the speed of the game, a lot often, the players coming from club, they've been playing with, the 17s, the 18s, and now they're coming to college where you're playing with ladies who are, been, 3 years older, 4 years older, stronger, harder. How do you find those freshmen adjust to that game?
I think it depends. We had a class of 4 freshmen come in this last year, and they all, in their own way, they all adapted really well. Some, it took a little bit longer for them to adapt. Some came in and made an impact right away. But I think that, obviously the higher level club they can play, the more qualifiers they can go to, kind of the more that they can be immersed into high level play. I think that that helps set them up to have success their first year. But I don't think that it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
I think that, I think it depends a lot on how do you bring them in? How do you incorporate them into your team, not only physically, but also like from a team culture standpoint. And that's where leadership comes in.
Yeah.
We're going to see them for, a set amount of time, whereas the upperclassmen or their captains or their teammates are going to see them for a long time,
Yeah.
especially during the day. And so I think that that's where your team culture has to come in, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to, embrace them. You have to be able to enfold them into the program, but then also hold them accountable. And I
Yeah.
think that we did a very good job, not just the coaching staff, but I think our players did an unbelievable job with that aspect of it.
Excellent. And now, when that season is over, sort of what happens next? One answer is as soon as the season over, next season starts. We start prepping for next season. I had an assistant coach on, and basically their season was over, and he was, after the pod, he was like, I got to, keep checking this transfer portal. And I had no idea how important or how wild transfer portal can be.
Yeah, I think that, and I agree with that. I think that we definitely, we look in the transfer portal. We didn't have anybody leave our program, and they didn't have anybody leave their program last year with the coaching change. And so I thought that that was really that was one of the things that enticed me or interested me the most about the school was they had a terrible year in 22, and not a single one of them
Wow.
wanted to transfer. And it's not because they weren't good enough. They love their experience as a student athlete here. Their volleyball experience wasn't great, but that was changing.
Yep.
They were kind of giving faith that that was changing. So that was really that was helpful to me when I was trying to make a decision on if this was the right program.
Right.
And it absolutely was. So we didn't lose anybody. And so we're not necessarily looking in the transfer portal that much. I think if if you lose people, then you do have to
Yeah.
you have to get going right away. We gave our girls some time off. They need the expectation is certainly that they're going to, work out and that they're going to lift, because I think that, being a student athlete is a lifestyle. It's
Yes.
not just, it's not just a fall commitment or a spring commitment. It's a lifestyle commitment. And so, they certainly needed to have some time to decompress and to, just kind of relax and, relax a little bit. But then the expectation is that they're working out, and I think we will start back up here in the next week or so, with workouts, with individual training, but they'll start up lifting as well.
Yeah.
So yes, we took some break. Yes, we took some time off, but the expectation is that they're still working out, and that's where that accountability comes in on their part.
Yeah. And then when do you get back together in gym with them? Not until like spring or summer?
No, we'll get back August. No, not August. January, I think it's January 20th. We'll have a team meeting that before that. We don't start up classes until like the 20th.
Yeah.
So they get a fairly decent break between fall and spring classes. So they'll be back in. They'll start rolling in next week. They'll start working out with Izzy, our strength coach, and then we'll have a team meeting. But I think we start up like around January 20th, 21st, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. And then, when do they, are they encouraged to sort of play ball amongst themselves for a while, or in the summer play some beach, or do, just keep touching a volleyball?
Yeah, so for about 3 weeks to a month, we'll have individual training sessions. We can go 8 hours with them, with volleyball
Yeah.
and lifting, and so they'll lift a lot. They'll lift 4 days a week, which I think that's a huge benefit to them, is to lift 4 days a week. They'll go Monday, Tuesday, take Wednesday off, go Thursday, Friday, and then they'll have the weekend off. We'll do the same thing from a training perspective. We'll when we're in the 8 hours, we'll train on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and then there'll be an open gym for them available on Fridays.
Yeah.
We're going to take Wednesdays off. This was something that we started to do at Michigan, and I really liked it, because you can go, 5 days in a row of going really hard with lifting and training. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body,
Yeah.
and I think that that's where we take Wednesday off so that we can go really hard on Monday, Tuesday. They can have a little bit of a recovery day on Wednesday. Plus, they can take care of classes.
Yeah.
They are in class and they are students. So being able to take care of classes during the workday, whether it's meeting with, or the work week, whether it's meeting with professors or study groups or whatever, they can kind of schedule that on Wednesdays, and then we'll go hard again on Thursday and Friday. So we're not, what we were finding when we were training was on Thursday and Friday, we kind of had to taper off and be really careful with them, because they were just, the fatigue was setting in, versus now we can go hard for 2 days, take a break, go really hard for 2 days. And I think that that's a good training model for us.
Okay. And now, sort of, you said that was one of the things you learned from Michigan, sort of what, is there any significant lesson you've learned as a coach, and how has it influenced your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I continue to try and get better at, but then also hold true to, is I want to relate to my student athletes as much as I can. I'm clearly not within their age group anymore, but relate to my student athletes. They have a lot of stuff on their plate, and I understand that and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I want to require a lot out of them.
Yeah.
I think that, I think in general, people like discipline. They like routine, they like discipline. And so being able to require a lot out of them, having high expectations out of them, that just makes them be better. But at the same time, being able to be very transparent and communicate effectively with them. I think that those are the two things that I think the student athletes at any era appreciate the most.
All right. Excellent. And now, any advice, any, words of wisdom to that, that high school coach or club coach who's looking to make a positive impact on these, young athletes through coaching?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is know why you're doing this. I think that so many people get into coaching because they think it's, it's kind of cool, or something like that. And it is. It's a very It's a very exciting, it's a very demanding profession. And so, but you also have, you have student athlete, you have very influential, very formative, you're in the formative years of these student athletes,
Yeah.
whether they're male or female, it doesn't matter. In high school, that's a big, their freshman year to their senior year, those are very tricky, very formative years for them. And so be a positive influence in their lives. It doesn't mean that you have to be their friend
Yep.
or that you can never demand anything of them, but make sure that you're getting to know them. And the same thing at the college level is, again, you can relate to them on some level, you can figure out how to relate to them. And then on a bigger level, you can require a lot out of them. I think if you do that, then you're setting them up for success.
Yeah.
But I think that, the people that it drives me nuts, the people that get into coaching that all they do, they're just extremes. Either all they do is yell and scream at the kids, or all they do is tell the kids that they're fabulous and great. I don't think that either one is right.
Yeah.
I think that they're, but I certainly don't think that the coaches that get in and that are yelling and screaming and berating them, there's no, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
I didn't get into this profession to yell and scream at 18 to 22 year olds. That's not, I think there's a better way. And so my advice would be to figure out how you can communicate and coach and require effectively, that's going to make both parties feel accomplished at the end.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you on that, yelling, screaming coach. That's no longer that way. You've got to have, it's a two-way communication, working, getting the trust from the athlete. You can't be the one that's just like hammering your fist, yelling at them, and it just doesn't work.
No. And I think that, you're right. I think that this is the era of kind of, but like they understand, but they want to have an explanation.
Yes.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that each era has had different kind of influences. This era wants information.
Yes.
And I think that they'll do it. Like, they'll do what you ask them to do. They will perform at the highest level that they can possibly perform at, but they want to know why.
Yep.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that them wanting to be educated in why are we doing this, and it certainly has to be asked at a respectful time and an appropriate time, but you also have to be willing to give that why before they even ask.
Absolutely.
And that's where trust is built. If you can effectively tell them or show them or explain to them why you're doing something before they ask, then they're going to start trusting you more and more. So I think that this is it's a fabulous, fascinating era of student athletes that we have, and not just student athletes, but just young professional kids that are trying to figure out the world.
And, speaking of those kids, what advice do you have for those athletes that are, want to play college ball next year or in a couple of years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is again, why are you playing? Just like I'd want to know why coaches are coaching, like, why are you playing? Are you playing just because that's what your parents want? Are you playing just because that's why you have to pay the bill? Like, that you can only go to college if you get a scholarship? Are you playing because you love it? And all reasons are valid, but you need to figure out why you're playing, because the demands that good coaches are going to put on you are very high. There's a lot of reward for those demands, but I still think that the demands are going to be high. And if you don't love what you do, then you're not going to do it very well. And that's not to say that you're going to come in and it's going to be rainbows and butterflies every single day. Like, that's not love.
No.
There's going to be tough days, but can you thrive through those tough days, or are you just surviving? And I think if you're in the mindset of just surviving, I think I don't think it'll be worth it.
Yeah. So now I'd love to get your thoughts on where do you think, volleyball is today? It seems like it's in a really great space.
Yeah, I think that it couldn't be, I mean, for the sport of volleyball, it couldn't be a better time. We're coming up on the Olympics, which
Hmm.
I think our national team's going to just kill it again. The talent level throughout the whole United States is getting so much deeper. And the parity in college volleyball is great. It's
Yeah.
fabulous. So, and obviously we've seen attendance records being broken everywhere. The Nebraska volleyball match
Yes.
that was held at the stadium. Like, there's so many things and then the Final Four, both the semifinals and the finals were record breaking.
Hmm.
The finals being on ABC. I know that we just signed another contract with ESPN, the NCAA did, and the finals it's being committed to being on ABC again. And that's huge. I
Yes.
think that participation numbers are the highest they've ever been. So I think volleyball is in a fabulous space right now. And I think that, it's not luck. We've earned that. We've worked really hard for it. But I think and clearly I'm biased, but I think anybody on this podcast is going to be biased too. I think that it's a great sport to watch.
Yeah.
You get power, you get excitement, it's fast paced.
Yep.
I mean, there's just so much positive about the game, and I think that people are noticing, and the people that we really want to notice, that's the TV executives, like, they're
Yep.
noticing.
And we got the new professional league that's starting up in a month. That's fantastic. And onto your, sort of that point about, we who watch volleyball, we know such a great sport it is. Like, with my daughter playing high school, a lot of the parents aren't really familiar with volleyball. So we say, hey, let's go up to, up here we have UConn. Let's go watch UConn. And they see Division I volleyball being played, and they're like, holy cow. Because in their head, they just think of picnic volleyball. But
Oh, absolutely. And I think the good thing is it's no longer just regional.
yeah,
Like you said, you can go to watch UConn, you can go to the South, you can go to the Midwest, you can go, you can go anywhere
yep,
to watch really good volleyball in person.
yes,
But I think that, obviously with the all of the conferences getting their own networks, that's helped, just bring more and more exposure.
yep,
I think what we've found, and we'll certainly dive into this deeper here at Fresno State. I wanted to wait a little bit before I really pushed the attendance, because I didn't know you want to be careful with what you put in front of people
yep,
as far as kind of a product. But I think that once you get someone in the gym, once you get someone in the arena to watch,
mm-hmm,
then they fall in love with it,
yep,
because there's so much. Again, it's fast paced. There's so much action that's happening. There's not really ever a lull
right.
in the game, with the exception of the 6 minutes or whatever in
Yep.
between sets, or between sets 2 and 3. But if you can get people, most of the time, if you can get people to watch it for their first time, then they'll fall in love with
Yeah.
it. And I think that that's something that we'll definitely tap into this next year here at Fresno State.
Yeah. The other aspect of when you see it live is like, I don't see this on the men's side, but on the women's side, the benches with their dances, they're having a blast. It's just, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the more that the atmosphere across the program and across the match can be exciting. I mean, I did not stay for the finals in Tampa, but I was at the semifinal matches, and both of those matches, I mean, even though both of them were kind of blowouts, the atmosphere was amazing.
Yeah.
They have, there's a lot of electricity, there's a lot
Hmm.
of excitement around the sport right now. And I definitely think we need to try and capitalize on that. But we've worked really hard as a sport to get
Yes.
where we're at right
Yeah.
now.
And now, when you're putting the whistle down, you're getting out of the gym. What are some things you like to do away from volleyball?
The funny thing is I'm super boring. I absolutely love being at home. Because we travel so much
Yeah.
with the team and then also recruiting, and that I absolutely love being home. I will go out to Ann Arbor here in May, because both my sons live out there. One lives out there professionally, and then the other is in college.
Yeah.
He's a pitcher on a baseball team. So I'll go out and watch them. I love actually watching baseball. I love college
Oh,
baseball. So I'm
okay.
excited to take in a little bit more of the college baseball here. Fresno State's got a very good baseball team, so I'm excited about seeing that more.
Oh, nice.
But just kind of chilling, like just being very
Yeah,
relaxed.
nice. All right. Well, hey, Coach, you made it through the podcast. Hopefully it wasn't too painful. But before I
No.
go, I ask my guests to suggest something, a peer, one of the athletes that you think have a good story, would like to come on and share it with us.
Oh gosh. As far as one of my student athletes, I think that Grace Doyle, she's a fifth year senior. She's definitely someone that's her story is very inspiring, but then also interesting.
Oh, excellent.
So I think she would be someone great. I also think that Jess Merzek, she is All-American at Penn State. She's a fabulous player, and I've known her. She was a ball shagger for us at Michigan, so she's grown up around me.
Yeah.
I think that her story, she's a fabulous person to talk to.
All right, there we go. Well, again, thank you so much. Congratulations on a fantastic first season and good luck next year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.